Hey, this is Jack, and this video is when and how to tell him you love him. Hey, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, I'd love to encourage you to do that. You can just click here, tap the subscribe, and then hit that bell notification because that will let you know of new videos as soon as they come out. All right, let's do this. So, how and when to tell him you love him? Well, a couple of things to say, just straight off the bat. Number one, cool that you are in a situation where you might want to tell someone that you love him. That's great, and he's wishing you all the best with how the relationship and connection unfolds. And the second thing is that you may have had some bad experience in this territory before. Maybe you've told a guy that you loved him and it didn't go well, like maybe he didn't want to hear it, or maybe you've told a guy you loved him and you're expecting to hear it back and you didn't, or maybe a guy has even told you that he loved you and you thought that meant great, that you were going to be together forever or have a long-term relationship, and that didn't unfold. So I get that there can be some difficult feelings and experiences in this territory, and what I'm hoping to do in this video, and I'm going to give you 3 specific kind of pointers, I'm hoping to give you some clarity about how to feel more relaxed about approaching this territory. So, the first thing to say is you're ready to tell him that you love him when you aren't needing for him to reciprocate. Now, the reason I'm saying that is partly because you may have had the experience that when a guy doesn't reciprocate, it's difficult. So part of this is just the sobriety of how do you know what's going on over there? How do you know what his experience is? Second thing is to say that what you really want, I think your true authentic desire is, you probably want to hear him say that he loves you, but you really want it to be authentic. Right? So if you're kind of expecting some reciprocation, part of you also knows, like maybe that's just kind of, polite social mores, polite kind of social custom, and that he's kind of saying it, and I don't really know if he means it. Now you don't even know if he means it, right? So much better that you cut him some space in this. Maybe he's going to say it one day, maybe he's not, but if he does, that you kind of know that he means it. So you're ready for this when his not reciprocating doesn't, either you don't experience it as rejection, or if you do, that you're willing to be with that. What you don't want is this kind of poignant moment of you revealing your feelings for him actually becomes this kind of negative experience because you had some false expectations on how it was going to go down. The second thing to say is that what might be a truer way of expressing this is there's 2 expressions, and they may sound a little clinical to you if you have never heard them before. I just want you to be open to them, and then you can make your own sense of them. Try them if it makes sense to you. Sometimes what can be more accurate is to say that there's love here right now, right? Or I'm experiencing love right now, because we might want to distinguish. I love you is really an essentially contested concept. I studied these in university, and they're complex. And what it really means is there's not one definition of what it means to say I love you, right? So when you say I love you and I hear I love you, we might be having 2 very different definitions of that. So by saying there's love here right now, or I'm experiencing love right now, it might be that you've got that. And I've been in the situation where there's kind of like this overwhelming experience of like, wow, just so open, so loving, so in my heart. And there's a way of saying that which doesn't actually have to do with, are we going to be together for a long time? There's a way of saying that which just really acknowledges truthfully, this is my experience right now. Like, I'm experiencing a lot of love for you right now. And again, that's slightly different than I love you. And oftentimes the people who burn most brightly to hear those words, I love you, it's also because they don't experience those words from themselves, right? So the experience of love is always an external in process. It's not an internal inside job. And so I'm just laying that seed that if you really, really need to hear those words, get a little curious. Is there also something that might be inside in terms of your own ability to love on yourself that may not really have been developed, right? So there's always this kind of like, wow, I need that from him, when actually there may be some reflection, at least in the early stages of a relationship, like, what am I doing to fill this cup for myself? So there is love. Now, the other expression that could also be more accurate is I'm falling in love with you, right? If you have that kind of butterfly, gooey, intoxicated, altered state of experience kind of experience, what you might be happening is you're falling in love, and you're having the experience of falling in love. And again, that is a different thing than I love you in the sense, I love you and stand by you, or I love you and I'm committed to you, or I love you, I really want to champion your highest growth. These are all facets of what it could mean to say I love you, but it might be actually truer to say I'm falling in love with you, because you may have had the experience that you, quote, love him, and then 3 months later you actually don't love him in that way because it was the falling in love experience, and that has its time. For some of us it's days, weeks, and some of us it's months and a year or two, but normally that season has its end, and then you get more clarity about what's really here. So the advantage of saying I'm falling in love is that it may also allow you the space to notice and be okay with what might be true for you once, the goggles have come off, right? And sometimes, and I know this, sort of intimately and painfully from my own experience, it can be really hard to see until that happens. And then sometimes what can happen is a whole load of stuff that you just haven't seen and felt, a whole load of reality starts to come in, right? And you notice like, oh, they don't do this, they don't do that, they don't meet me in these ways. And that wasn't noticeable to you when you were having that intoxicating feeling of falling in love, which to some extent is often based on a little bit of a delusion. It's a luscious experience. I'm not wanting to stop or cheat any of that experience. It's just kind of saying it's normally based upon a selective filter on reality where you notice certain things and you really pay attention to them, and you kind of unnotice a whole set of other things. And sometimes you subjectify the other person, right? You imagine they're more like you, or they think like me, or they feel like me, or we're just meant to be, or there's all these things we have in common. And you kind of don't look and see the other things that actually there's all these things that we don't have in common. Maybe we're not compatible culturally and politically, and we don't like the same things to do on a weekend, and that list could go on and on. So I'm saving you from yourself a little bit, but also just there might just be a bit more truth. It doesn't stop you saying I love you, but it might be like, this might be a little bit more for now, and then maybe that love you thing can come further down the line. The third thing that I want to point out in this territory is that when a guy says to you, I love you, right, which might be the thing that you're wanting to hear from him, as you may have picked up from what I've already said in this video, you don't really know what that means. And I want to invite you the maximum curiosity about what that could mean, which, it might be in the moment you just receive it and feel it and enjoy the experience of having a guy that you want to say I love you, saying that he loves you. And it might be in a quieter moment at a different time. You actually explore that with him. Like, I'm really curious, like what that means, and that can seem a little bit clinical and unsexy, take it or leave it. But at least it stops you being in some fantasy that because he said he loves you, now he's going to propose to you, right? Or because he said he loves you, he's going to be exclusive with you. Or because he said he loves you, he's going to be your boyfriend and eventually your husband. Or whatever narrative that you might want to overlay on that. That narrative could be the thing that actually keeps you unfree. It could be the thing that cheats you from seeing what is actually going on. Better, I would imagine, that he actually tells you what that means to him, or what his stand for you and commitment to you is or isn't. And again, that might have to develop over time, but it's not substituting the complexity of a relationship and real compatibility with someone, and what that means in terms of your ability to handle conflict, your ability to be in each other's defenses, your ability to want the same things in terms of lifestyle and income and children and housing and all the kind of practical things that go into a relationship. They don't just get encompassed in that word, I love you, right? Said differently, you can love lots of people, right? You're probably capable of loving lots of people. A lot of people who are in arranged marriages end up loving the person they're with, right? That doesn't necessarily mean that there's the kind of compatibility that you might want in a long-term relationship. So I'm also just inviting you to notice what is the value of those words, and what would have you really experience the thing that you want to experience that you may have those words as a proxy for, right? So for you, if you actually, to feel loved on an ongoing basis, you need to be appreciated in certain ways, or you need to be touched in certain ways, or you need to be tended to or gifted on. That's probably going to be as important to you as the particular words, I love you, and kind of when those words are first received. Now, all of this, just to kind of take a step back and give you a kind of bonus fourth point, all of this, I think, should be subservient to your own intuition, right? To acknowledge that there is a uniqueness to you and your unfolding. There is a uniqueness to your unfolding in a connection with a man. And there's no kind of concrete rule about when or when you shouldn't say I love you and how you should say it. That there is a kind of knowing that you might come to that feels right for you in this particular circumstance and in this season of your life and in the context of him. You might be able to intuit that it's a bit early for him to hear me tell him I love him. You might be ready to say that on the second date and he's completely able to hear it. Your intuition is what will let you know that. And, it might not be that you get it right every time. And I really want to encourage you to let it in because it's going to be some of the best quality information that you can receive. Sometimes relationships burn fast and bright. Both people fall in love quickly. It's hot and heavy and passionate and engrossing, and it's done in a couple of months or even sometimes days and weeks. And you might have had that experience. And probably, if you're looking for a long-term relationship, you might now be ready to learn something about mature love. And mature love isn't high school love, right? Mature love is not just about can we fall in love. Mature love is can we love each other on an ongoing basis, even sometimes when we don't feel like it, even when we are both bringing our darkness to the table. Can we love each other in an ongoing way through the thick and thin and difficulties of relationship, as well as the highs and the adventures and the experiences and upsides of relationship, right? And that is a little bit more complex than just I love you. Now, sometimes people like to think that love is enough, and I totally get that perspective. Right? I think there is something true that if you really love someone and you both love each other and you're willing to work on it, there's all sorts of obstacles you can overcome. I know even in the context of my relationship, there's all sorts of geographical and physical constraints that we've had to overcome to be together. And that's difficult and awesome. And I love it and I wouldn't change it. And you might be able to relate to that if you're in some kind of long distance relationship. And when it comes to being really compatible and a good partner to someone, there are all sorts of other things that aren't just about, do I hold this person really dearly and can I be with their dark side? There's also can we do life together? Can we build together? Can we play together? Can we create together? And that's just not every person that you come across that you're going to be able to do that with. So I'm also just inviting okay, if you knew that you didn't have real compatibility with someone, if you could see that soberly, I love this person, this is a great person, I love them, and I get that we actually are not good partners to one another. We don't hold a similar vision for where we want our lives to go. We're not processing reality in kind of resonant ways. We don't have the same attention on the things that matter to us. If you notice that, would you still want to tell a guy that you love him? And you might, right? It might be true to say, I love you, and we're not going to be together. You might not include that, but that might be the background experience. But it may become a little less important to you as you start to pay more attention to the things that may really constitute what's going to happen, what could happen over the long term with someone, right? So suddenly it's not like, oh, we got to the I love you and now boom, we're locked in. It's like, okay, falling in love, that's a process. I could love lots of people, that's true. I do love this person, that might be true. And I notice that compatibility is going to trump a lot of these things. And I really want to get to know what real compatibility is. So as sort of, unsexy or clinical or paused out as that may sound, what I'm also helping you not have is the experience that we said I love you to each other and we don't really know what that means, and now we're kind of confused, and now he's gone kind of distant, and now he's kind of disappeared, and my heart is just broken open and I'm in so much pain because I thought he said I love you, and when he said that I thought he meant I'm trustworthy and I'm going to hang around and I'm going to be here and I'm going to be your man, right? That's a different thing. Now, ideally, for the long term, we need both those things, right? If I'm going to be in relationship with you in the long term, yeah, I want to love you and I want to be your man. And I'm distinguishing that so that you get both, because I imagine if you're here and you're still here listening, you're watching this right now and you're a woman, you want that whole enchilada relationship, right? Not the fantasy, the one that's just always good. No, the whole enchilada is going to be through thick and thin, right? There's going to be lots of twists and turns and unfoldings, and you want a guy that both loves you and is good for you and is going to commit and stand by you, and that you can create some kind of ground together. That's why I'm kind of laying this down, and I'm sort of taking your question of the attention on I love you, and I'm challenging, is that the right focus of attention? Do you even know what that means? And therefore is the right time at some point to be like, hey, let's you and I have a meaningful conversation about whether we play well together. Are we good partners for each other? Can we even be objectively somewhat in that conversation? If you can't do it together, do it with a good friend, do it with a coach, do it with someone that can help bring that in, because that is what's actually going to get you more of what you want in the long run, most of you, which is an ongoing love relationship with someone that cares about you and is a good fit. And I care about that. That's why I devote my attention and spend, what is it now? 6 p.m. on a Friday night, and I'm shooting this video because I care about this, because it's important and because it's made a huge difference in my own life, and it's been a huge part of my own growing up and maturity. Now, if you really want to understand more about real compatibility, I really want to encourage you to take a look at the 3 Keys to Being Relationship Ready webinar, because if you come and be part of that webinar, you will get invited to a special program that my teaching partner and I have put on. And one of the modules in that program is all about real compatibility. But to be part of that program, you need to come through our webinar. So if you've not taken it, click the link below this video, find a time that works for you in your time zone, and maybe we can help you really understand the kind of compatibility that will make a long-term love relationship with the right guy possible. I would love to be part of that journey for you. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, come on, let's do this, subscribe. And as always, I'm Jack. Thanks for being with me.